So, I haven't done one of these in a while. This is kind of like a concert thoughts that I had, not quite a concert review. A couple weeks ago, I saw Peter Gabriel, and it was amazing. I should almost do one of those, typical YouTube lifestyle kind of a videos where it's like, I saw Peter Gabriel, and it was amazing. The whole like editing aspects of it, but I am a little too lazy for that. So these are just some of my thoughts that I've had, some of the ideas I had floating around my head, because it's been now about 2 weeks since I saw him perform in Toronto. The first thing that I want to say is that this is the second time I've seen him live. I caught him when he was doing his Back to Front tour, and Peter Gabriel's my favorite artist of all time. It's like him, Kate Bush, and then everybody else, right? Like I love his approach to music. I love his approach to writing and producing an album, and I love everything that this man does. One of the things that I purposefully did for this was I didn't listen to any of the new tracks that he had been putting out since last year. I wanted to go in fresh. And part of that was I wanted to listen to the album for the first time, completely fresh without hearing any of the music. And it was just kind of like a really pleasant side effect that I went into this not hearing half of the music that he was putting out. So this was really such a fascinating time for me, because here's my favorite artist and I'm listening to him. Like half of his show is music that I've never heard before. There was something about that got me so excited, to go into this concert and knowing I'm not going to know half the music that I'm going to be hearing. And most of this is going to be my first impression of these songs. This is going to be the first time I hear it, and it's being performed by the person that wrote it. And it just got me back into that mindset, was like, this was how we listened to music 100 years ago. When Stravinsky put out his Firebird suite, the only way you could hear it at the time was to hear it be performed live. It was just such a good feeling for me. And it was such a pleasant surprise because all these songs slapped. Like, I've had Panopticon in my head since leaving that concert, and I've listened to both the Dark Side mix and the Bright Side mix, and I've loved both aspects of it. I.O. is another one that I've had in my mind pretty much since then. All these tracks really do showcase how he has progressed as an artist since his last album of Up that came out 20 years ago. So that was such a joy to hear. The other thing that I really, really loved, and I'm going to gush a lot about this concert. I loved all the small things that he did. Like before the concert, he had this round screen, very similar to like the Pink Floyd round screen, with this guy that was basically just painting on the hands of the clock. So the numbers were already around the clock, and every minute he would scrape off the minute hand and repaint the minute hand to show the time as we were getting closer and closer to 8 o'clock. And that was just so brilliant. And I loved seeing just the small attention to detail, and it was hypnotic. Like throughout the entire lead up to the concert, I just kept watching that and loving that. I also love the fact that he continuously introduced and let the audience know of all of the different musicians that he had on stage, because I believe there were 9 of them. And he continuously, like, obviously we all know David Rhodes and we all know Tony Levin, but continuously introducing everybody else that helped him kind of flesh out the music. And very rarely, he would take the center stage, but he would always share it with everybody else, regardless of when in the song it was. Absolutely love that. The stage presentation was phenomenal. I love that at any point you can see everybody on the stage. This brings me to one of the first criticisms that I have, and it's less a criticism of his performance and his stage, and more of just an observation that I've had in general of bands continuously putting lights more and more out into the crowd, which for me was not so great because I like to sit a little bit higher up. A, because they're cheaper, and B, I am less at a risk for the person that's in front of me standing the entire time. I mean, it still happens, but it's less of a chance. Because of that, more often than not, I had lights shining in my eyes, so I literally couldn't see what was going on stage. And it wasn't until like the third or fourth track that I was able to actually see the stage through the lights. And I was like, oh, okay, so there's where everybody is. That's where everybody's kind of main focus is. That's what the stage looks like. Because up to that point, I just had this glare in my eyes for the whole time. And it wasn't until the intermission when I kept thinking about it. And I'm like, Peter is smarter than this. He would know not to compromise anybody's experience. Like his mythos is always to give the audience the absolute best show that he could produce. And why would he compromise it by shining very bright lights out into the crowd for most of the songs? And it finally clued in. And before the concert, all around the big banner within the Scotiabank Arena, they had please no photography, no recordings of any kind. And they kept reminding people, do not bring out your phone, do not take pictures, all that stuff. And throughout the evening, because I'm sitting higher up, I'm looking out into the crowd and, maybe about 10% had their phone out throughout pretty much all of the show, because you can see that little blue light of somebody holding up their phone taking the video, right? And my thought is, and I have nothing to base this on outside of my own thoughts, my thought is this is giving those phones a compromised visual, because you're going to get a lot of lens flares. You're not going to get a proper picture. There's always going to be a lens flare or a bright light in it, and it's more of a deterrent for people to not take pictures and not take videos. And that is the only thing I can think of. You don't want to be looking at it and everything looking like a J.J. Abrams film. And that's the only thing I can think of why Peter Gabriel would do this and why more and more concerts are doing this, especially when you don't really need to do that, Anyway, that's my only thought about that. And that was my only criticism or concern of the concert. The one piece that I wanted to end on, outside of the selection of songs were perfect. He played a lot of his new stuff. He played a lot of his classics. Obviously, there's a bunch of songs that I wish he would have played, but I get not being able to play. Like, I would have loved to see Downside Up. I would have loved to see Signal to Noise. But I am so glad that he played Darkness, and he played Growing Up, and he played Salisbury Hill, like, obviously. Played Red Rain and Digging in the Dirt. So it was a good smattering of songs. The last thing was, throughout this whole sequence of releasing a new track every full moon, and then the kind of dark side mix every new moon, was like, why is he releasing these tracks the way he is? Why the long drawn out way of releasing these tracks? And it was something that he said really, really close to the beginning of the concert that made me reevaluate why he was doing it. Because at the moment, I was just like, just release the damn thing. Why are you making me wait for it? But he says, in today's climate, in today's culture, and I'm not a big fan of when people start off with like, well, in today's time, back in my day, we used to have it properly, and people don't know how to properly do things today. I'm like, get off your damn high horse. Like, that's just how things happen. But he did make a pretty good revelation of, like, because everything's immediate, because everything is right at your fingertips at all times, there's always the sense of urgency. There's always the sense of immediacy. There's always the sense that we need it now. And even I found myself falling into that trap where I'm like, guy, just release the damn album. He's like, there's a brilliance and beauty in patience. There's a brilliance and beauty in expectations. And we've kind of lost that delayed gratification. And I mean, the closest that we've come to is buying something on Amazon and having to wait for it to be delivered. We don't really have that slow burn of slowly having something reveal itself to us. And with his releasing of one track every 28 days or so, it really allows us to appreciate and look at something from all facets and really digesting it before moving on to the next piece. It's kind of reminding me of like I don't know if anybody else remembers this, but last year and into the lockdown periods, there was this thing that you can sign up for and have chapters of Dracula be emailed to you based on when those letters and when those chapters occurred, because you can see the day and the month at which these letters had been written. And so they would send you into your inbox that chapter on the day that that letter supposedly was written. So, and it was this big draw for a lot of people to have this delayed gratification, to mull over these things, to think about how things develop and being able to look at it and sit with it. You know, it kind of reminds me of way back in the day when TV episodes were very much episodic and they would come out once a week. And we're starting to get back to that with, you know, like The Mandalorian and a lot of the Marvel stuff where they're releasing one episode a week rather than releasing the entire season all at once. And so it kind of reminded me more of like this more delayed gratification, this looking things over and appreciating things one at a time, episodically, and then moving on. And I'm like, I can get behind that. I can really dig that. So now I'm going to move forward, even though I only have like 2 or 3 songs left. Every time he releases a new track, I'm going to spend the time and really get into it and really dive into it and really look at it from all facets. And I completely understand now why he's doing this. So I know that took up the bulk of the video, but I wanted to at least express that and kind of chat about that for a little bit. So yeah, Peter Gabriel is great. Peter Gabriel is great. I had a blast seeing him live. It's a concert that I know I'm going to be thinking about for a very, very long time. And I pray that he releases a DVD, very similar to how he did with all of his other live shows. That's my thoughts. That's my thoughts on the show. It was great. It was fantastic. I wish he didn't blast bright lights into the crowd, but I also get it. That's going to wrap it up for me. Have you guys seen the show? If you have, let me know of your own thoughts about it, your own experiences, what you loved about the show. Let me know all about that by commenting down below. So thank you all so much for watching. As always, you guys are definitely the best. And until next time, notes out.